I need to tell you something that most financial advisors won't say directly, something that most retirees don't realize until it's too late. The majority of people retiring today will run out of money before they die. Not because they're irresponsible, not because they didn't save, but because retirement has fundamentally changed in ways that the old rules and assumptions don't account for. People are living longer than ever. Healthcare costs are exploding. Investment returns are lower than historical averages. Inflation is eating away at purchasing power, and the traditional sources of retirement income, pensions, and Social Security are either disappearing or insufficient. The result is that millions of retirees who thought they were prepared are going to outlive their money, facing poverty in their final years when they're too old to work and too proud to ask their children for help. Today, I'm going to explain exactly why this crisis is happening, what the specific mistakes are that cause retirees to run out of money, and most importantly, how you can structure your retirement to ensure your money lasts as long as you do. Because running out of money in retirement isn't just a financial catastrophe, it's a human tragedy that destroys dignity and security when people are most vulnerable. Let me start with the fundamental problem. People are living much longer than previous generations, but they're not saving proportionally more or planning for longer retirements. In 1950, the average American who reached age 65 lived another 12 to 14 years. Retirement planning was simple. Work until 65, collect Social Security and a pension, live on that income for 10 to 15 years, and die. The system worked because retirement was relatively short. Today, the average 65-year-old will live another 20 years. That's nearly double the retirement length. And many people live much longer. Reaching 85 or 90 is increasingly common. Some live to 100. But here's the problem. Most people are still planning for 15 to 20-year retirements when they should be planning for 25 to 35-year retirements. They're saving based on the old assumptions, withdrawing based on the old assumptions, and then discovering at age 80 that they've spent most of their money with potentially another 10 to 15 years to live. This mismatch between expected lifespan and financial planning is the root cause of why retirees run out of money. The second major problem is healthcare costs. Healthcare expenses in retirement are staggering and accelerating. Fidelity estimates that a couple retiring at age 65 today will need approximately $300,000 just for healthcare costs over their retirement. $300,000. That doesn't include long-term care, which is a separate enormous expense. It's just routine health care. Insurance premiums, co-pays, prescription drugs, medical procedures. And these costs are growing faster than general inflation. Healthcare inflation runs at 6 to 8% annually compared to general inflation of 2 to 3%. This means healthcare costs double every 9 to 12 years. What happens is retirees budget for healthcare based on what they're spending at age 65. Maybe they're spending $15,000 per year. They think that's manageable. But by age 75, healthcare inflation has pushed that to $25,000 or $30,000 per year. By age 85, it's $40,000 to $50,000 per year. And if they develop chronic conditions requiring ongoing treatment, the costs explode higher. Suddenly, a large portion of their retirement income is going to healthcare, leaving less for everything else. This squeeze forces retirees to either cut their lifestyle dramatically or deplete their savings faster than planned. Long-term care is even worse. The average cost of a private room in a nursing home is now over $100,000 per year. In high-cost areas like California or New York, it can exceed $150,000. If you need nursing home care for 3 years, that's $300,000 to $450,000. Very few retirees have that kind of money available. Medicare doesn't cover long-term custodial care. Medicaid will cover it, but only after you've spent down your assets to poverty levels. Long-term care insurance exists, but is expensive and has gotten more expensive as insurance companies have lost money on these policies. Many people don't buy it, can't afford it, or find that the coverage is inadequate when they actually need care. The result is that long-term care costs can completely wipe out retirement savings in just a few years. I've seen people who retired with $1 million spend $300,000 on 5 years of nursing home care for one spouse. leaving only $700,000 for the surviving spouse who might live another 10 or 15 years. That's devastating. And it's increasingly common. The third problem is inflation. And this is one most retirees dramatically underestimate. Let me show you the math because it's important to understand how destructive inflation is over long periods. If inflation averages 3% per year, prices double every 24 years. Something that costs $50,000 today will cost $100,000 in 24 years. For a retiree at age 65 planning for a potentially 30-year retirement, they need to understand that their cost of living at age 95 will be roughly double what it is at age 65. But most retirees don't plan this way. They calculate their retirement needs based on current expenses. They think if they need $60,000 per year today, they'll need $60,000 per year in the future. But with 3% inflation, in 20 years, they'll need about $108,000 per year to maintain the same standard of living. Their income needs almost double just from inflation.
If their retirement savings and income don't keep pace with inflation, their purchasing power erodes, and they're forced to cut their lifestyle or deplete savings faster.
Social Security has cost of living adjustments, but they often don't keep pace with actual inflation, especially healthcare inflation, which retirees experience more than general inflation. Pension income, for those lucky enough to have pensions, usually has no inflation adjustment. If you retire with a $40,000 annual pension, that $40,000 is fixed. In 20 years, inflation has cut its purchasing power in half. You're receiving the same number of dollars, but they buy half as much. This is a silent killer of retirement security. The fourth problem is investment returns. The traditional retirement planning models were built on assumptions of 7 to 8% annual investment returns based on historical stock market performance. But future returns are likely to be lower. With stock valuations elevated, with bond yields lower than historical averages, with demographic headwinds from aging populations, realistic return expectations should probably be more like 4 to 5%. This makes an enormous difference over 30 years. If you retire with $1 million and earn 8% annually while withdrawing $50,000 per year, adjusted for inflation, your money lasts over 30 years. If you earn only 5% annually with the same withdrawals, your money runs out in about 23 years. That 3% difference in returns means running out of money 7 years earlier. And for someone retiring at 65, running out of money at 88 versus 95 is the difference between modest security and poverty in their final years. The fifth problem is sequence of returns risk. This is technical but crucial for retirees to understand. It's not just the average return that matters, but the order in which returns occur. If you experience negative returns early in retirement while taking withdrawals, you can deplete your portfolio to the point where even strong returns later can't save you.
You've already sold too many shares at low prices to fund withdrawals, locking in losses and leaving less capital to benefit from the eventual recovery.
For example, imagine two retirees, each starting with $1 million, each averaging 5% returns over 20 years, each withdrawing $50,000 annually. But retiree A experiences negative returns in years 1 through 3 and positive returns later. Retiree B experiences positive returns early and negative returns later. Despite having the same average return, retiree A runs out of money much faster because they were forced to sell shares at depressed prices early in retirement. Retiree B ends with a much larger portfolio. This sequence risk is one of the biggest but least understood threats to retirement security. The sixth problem is the decline of pensions. In the 1980s, about 60% of private sector workers had traditional pensions that paid guaranteed income for life. Today, it's under 15%. Pensions have been replaced by 401k plans that shift all investment risk and longevity risk to the individual. With a pension, you receive a monthly check for life, regardless of how long you live or what happens to markets.
With a 401k, you're responsible for managing the money, deciding how much to withdraw, and hoping you don't outlive your savings. This shift has been a catastrophe for retirement security.
Most people don't have the knowledge or discipline to manage their 401k properly. They make poor investment choices, pay high fees, withdraw too much, and run out of money. Even people who do everything right face longevity risk. If you live longer than expected, your 401k runs out. With a pension, you can't outlive it. The elimination of pensions has created a generation of retirees facing financial insecurity that previous generations didn't experience. The seventh problem is Social Security's inadequacy and uncertainty. Social Security was never designed to be the sole source of retirement income. It was meant to supplement pensions and personal savings. But for many retirees, Social Security is their primary or only income source. The average Social Security benefit is around $19,000 per year. Try living on $19,000 per year with healthcare costs, housing, food, and other expenses. It's nearly impossible without additional income or savings. And Social Security faces long-term funding problems. The trust fund is projected to be depleted by 2033 or 2034. At that point, incoming payroll taxes will cover only about 75 to 80% of promised benefits. Congress will likely fix this somehow, either by raising taxes, cutting benefits, raising the retirement age, or some combination. But the uncertainty creates anxiety for retirees and near retirees who don't know if the benefits they're counting on will actually be there in full. So those are the problems: longer lifespans, exploding healthcare costs, inflation erosion, lower investment returns, sequence risk, disappearing pensions, and inadequate Social Security. Any one of these problems would be challenging. All of them together create a perfect storm that's going to cause millions of retirees to run out of money. But here's the good news. If you understand these problems, you can plan around them. Let me give you specific strategies to ensure your money lasts as long as you do. First and most important, save more than you think you need. The old rule of thumb was that you need 8 to 10 times your final salary saved for retirement. If you earned $70,000 per year, you needed $560,000 to $700,000 saved. But given longer lifespans, healthcare costs, and lower expected returns, you really need 12 to 15 times your final salary. That same $70,000 earner needs $840,000 to $1,050,000. Yes, that's a much higher bar, but it reflects the reality of 30-year retirements in an expensive healthcare environment with modest investment returns. If you're currently working, this means saving more aggressively. You should be saving at least 15% of your gross income, preferably 20%. Max out your 401k contributions. Use IRAs. Save in taxable accounts if you've maxed out retirement accounts. I know this means less money for current lifestyle, but the alternative is poverty in your 70s and 80s when you're too old to work. Making that trade-off, living a bit more modestly now to ensure security later, is rational. Second, work longer. Every additional year you work accomplishes three things. It gives you another year to save and invest, growing your nest egg. It's one less year you need your savings to cover, shortening your retirement period. And it delays Social Security, increasing your benefit. Working from 62 to 67 instead of retiring at 62 can make an enormous difference in retirement security. I understand that not everyone can work longer due to health or job loss. But if you're able, working into your late 60s is one of the most effective ways to ensure your money lasts. Even working part-time in early retirement helps. If you can earn $20,000 per year from part-time work in your mid-60s, that's $20,000 you're not withdrawing from savings, allowing your portfolio to continue growing. Third, delay Social Security as long as possible. Your Social Security benefit increases by about 8% per year for each year you delay between full retirement age and age 70. That's a guaranteed return of 8% on your benefit, risk-free. If you're in good health and expect to live into your 80s or beyond, delaying Social Security is almost always the right financial decision. I know it's psychologically difficult to watch your potential benefits sitting there unclaimed, but the math is clear. Larger monthly benefits for the rest of your life, which could be 25 or 30 years, are worth much more than starting smaller benefits a few years earlier. Fourth, be conservative with withdrawal rates. The old 4% rule said you could withdraw 4% of your portfolio in the first year and adjust for inflation thereafter, and your money would last 30 years. But that rule was based on historical returns and shorter retirement periods. With lower expected returns and longer lifespans, you should probably use a 3 to 3.5% withdrawal rate. If you have $1 million, That's $30,000 to $35,000 per year, not $40,000. Yes, it means a lower lifestyle, but it dramatically increases the probability your money lasts. Fifth, maintain equity exposure even in retirement. Many retirees make the mistake of going entirely to bonds and cash because they want safety. But with 30-year retirements, you need growth to outpace inflation. A reasonable allocation for a healthy 65-year-old might be 50 to 60% stocks and 40 to 50% bonds and cash. The stocks provide growth over time. The bonds and cash provide stability and fund withdrawals during stock market downturns, protecting you from sequence risk. As you age, you can gradually reduce equity exposure. By your late 70s or early 80s, you might shift to 30 to 40% stocks. But even in your 90s, maintaining some equity exposure makes sense because you still need to outpace inflation. Going entirely conservative too early is a mistake that leads to running out of money as inflation erodes purchasing power. 6, plan explicitly for healthcare costs. Budget at least $15,000 to $20,000 per year for healthcare and early retirement, and assume that will grow at 6% annually. That means by age 80, you should be budgeting $30,000 to $40,000 per year for healthcare. Have a separate bucket of money earmarked for healthcare that you don't touch for other expenses. And seriously consider long-term care insurance if you're in your 50s or early 60s and can afford it. The premiums are expensive, but the protection can save your retirement if you need extended care. 7th, minimize fees and taxes. Investment fees of even 1% annually can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars over a 30-year retirement through the compounding effect. Use low-cost index funds with expense ratios under 0.1%. Avoid high-fee financial advisors unless they're providing genuine value. Every dollar you pay in fees is a dollar that's not growing for your retirement. Be strategic about taxes. Withdraw from taxable accounts first, then tax-deferred accounts like traditional IRAs, then Roth IRAs last. Do Roth conversions in low-income years to move money from tax-deferred to Roth, paying tax now at low rates to avoid higher taxes later. The goal is to minimize lifetime taxes, keeping more money working for you. 8th, consider annuities for a portion of your portfolio. I'm generally not a fan of complex annuities with high fees, but simple immediate annuities that convert a lump sum into guaranteed lifetime income can be valuable. If you take $200,000 and buy an immediate annuity at age 70, you might get about $12,000 per year, guaranteed for life. That's additional income you can't outlive, similar to a pension. It won't make you rich, but it provides a floor of income that, combined with Social Security, ensures you can cover basic needs even if you live to 100. 9th, be flexible with spending. Don't lock yourself into a fixed lifestyle. In early retirement, when you're healthy and active, you might spend more on travel and activities. As you age and become less active, spending naturally decreases. Be willing to adjust. If markets are down or you're spending faster than planned, cut back. Delay discretionary expenses. Be flexible rather than rigidly sticking to a spending plan that's depleting your savings. Have a backup plan. What will you do if you're 85 and running low on money? Will you move in with children? Sell your house and downsize dramatically? Get a reverse mortgage? Work part-time if you're able? Having these difficult conversations and plans in place before you're in crisis mode is crucial. Don't wait until you're 90 and destitute to figure out options. Let me give you a specific example of good retirement planning versus bad retirement planning to make this concrete. Bad planning, John retires at 62 with $700,000 saved. He starts Social Security immediately at 62, getting $21,000 per year. He withdraws $45,000 from savings, giving him $66,000 total income. He's 60% bonds and 40% stocks, thinking that's safe. Healthcare costs $15,000 the first year, but grow to $30,000 by age 77. His 4% plus withdrawals combined with modest 5% returns mean his savings are depleted by age 80. He still receives Social Security, but the $21,000 per year isn't enough to cover expenses that are now much higher due to inflation and healthcare costs. He faces poverty for potentially another 10 years of life. Good planning, Mary retires at 67 with $900,000 saved after working 5 additional years. She delays Social Security until 70, getting $36,000 per year 70% more than John. She withdraws only $30,000 from savings initially, 3.3% withdrawal rate, giving her $66,000 total income, the same as John. She maintains 60% stocks for growth. Her lower withdrawal rate and higher Social Security mean her savings actually grow to over $1 million by age 80, even after withdrawals. She has the flexibility to increase withdrawals if needed or continue modest withdrawals and leave an inheritance. She's financially secure through her 90s. The difference? Mary saved more, worked longer, delayed Social Security, used a lower withdrawal rate, and maintained equity exposure. These aren't complicated strategies. They're straightforward applications of sound financial principles, but they make the difference between security and poverty in late retirement. I'm 84 years old. I've watched thousands of people retire over my lifetime. I've seen which strategies work and which lead to financial disaster. And I can tell you with certainty that most retirees today are not prepared for the reality of 30-year retirements with exploding healthcare costs and modest investment returns. They're following outdated rules and hoping everything works out. For many, it won't. They'll run out of money in their 80s, facing poverty when they're most vulnerable. But it doesn't have to be this way. If you understand the problems, if you plan explicitly for longer lifespans and higher costs, if you save more and withdraw less and stay flexible, you can have a secure retirement. The strategies I've outlined work. They're proven. The question is whether you have the discipline to implement them even when they require sacrifice and patience. Because the alternative, running out of money at age 85, is too terrible to accept.